Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be here, speaking from Jerusalem, giving my lecture to this wonderful conference. And I'm looking forward to discussing the sources and my presentation later with all of you. So I'll begin. It is rare to hear the voices of women and children in traditional Jewish texts. We have no full-length Hebrew text authored by either a woman or a child from before the 19th century, and very few texts in the Jewish vernacular languages, Yiddish and others. Texts written by men rarely bring the perspective of women or children, let alone their voices. Thus, when it comes to girls who suffer from both the marginalization of women and children, our expectation to find records of their voices is very low. Nevertheless, in this lecture, I will present a few examples of texts that clearly present the voices of girls and young women who lived in early modern Jewish communities in Western and Central Europe. These voices, as we shall see, appear in rather surprising locations. In these texts, we not only hear the girls' voices, but we can also see that they represent a whole spectrum of experiences and life situations. Visual representations of girls make their first appearances in the late 16th and early 17th centuries. In this image, we can see girls participating in one of the rituals most identified with women, the lighting of the Shabbat or holiday candles. Although the girls themselves don't seem to be taking an active role in lighting the candles, one of the girls is setting the table, the artist decided to include them, probably depicting the reality in which girls were encouraged to participate in those commandments they were expected to fulfill as adults. So here we can see a representation of girls, but can we actually hear their voices? Do we know what they said or how they talked? Where can we find these quotes or these sources that quote or were written by girls? So I have identified 3 different genres in which we can find the voices of Jewish girls. One of them is responsa literature. Those are legal discussions among rabbis, discussing usually case studies or real actual cases that took place in reality of different legal, halachic, Jewish law issues, questions, in which the story or what happened or what the imagined story appears in the question, and then comes the answer. The second genre is colophons, statements at the end of books, typically with a printer's emblem, giving information about the authorship and printing, or written by the typesetter, as in the case we're talking about. Letters. There are a few letters written by Jewish girls from early modern Europe. I will not discuss them in this lecture as it's a different genre and there are different examples which warrant their own separate lecture. And so we will just keep that in mind and save it for another time. But I wanted to concentrate on the 2 first sources or genres because they're rare and special, and hearing the voices and one would not expect to find the voices of girls in these texts. I will begin with the first genre. When do girls' voices enter legal discussions? Mostly in incidents of mock or accidental marriages. According to Jewish law, a woman is married to a man if she accepts an object from him, which is usually a ring, but does not necessarily have to be a ring, that has some value, it is worth more than nothing. and the man spoke the right formula in front of two witnesses. The relative simplicity of the marriage ceremony has led to cases in which, as part of a game or as a means of tricking a woman into sexual relations, young women found themselves married against their will and in need of a divorce. We will now see such a case and the investigation carried by the rabbi to whom this question was presented. Bear in mind that two actions must have occurred. The man must have given the object and the woman received it, and the Hebrew formula must have been said verbatim, and the woman did not voice her objection. Our story took place in a household with a number of servants, probably a rich household, and concerns a ring that was found by one of the male servants. I am showing the Hebrew text here, just that you can get an impression of how the text is constructed. Highlighting the places in which we hear the direct voice of the woman in yellow, and her quoted speech, that is when others testify to what she has said, in green. And I'm reading a translation. I won't read the whole paragraph, just the key sentences in English. I was asked about an incident that happened at the house of the Honorable Mr. Levia. One young man by the name of Mail had a ring in his hand, and the Virgin, which is how young unmarried women were usually referred to in legal text. It doesn't necessarily have to do with whether she was actually a virgin or not. Servant in this house said to him, "Why do you need this ring? Give it to me." So he gave it to her and spoke the marriage formula, and she accepted the ring. And this happened in front of two kosher witnesses. We also asked the Virgin, and these are her words, and this is now it's quoted in Yiddish. What the previous text was in Hebrew. I said to the lad, "What do you have here? This was in the possession of Yudal's maid, and I took it, but heard nothing from the lad. Only later, when the guys laughed, I realized what happened, and I threw it." Witness 1, again, quoted in Yiddish. The girl said to the lad, "How did you obtain this ring? It belongs to Yudal's maid. Give it to me." And the guy said, "Take it, but you are married to me," and said something I did not hear. A witness 2, again in Yiddish. And then the Virgin said to the lad, "Give me the ring." And he refused. So she begged him much. So in the English translation here, we cannot see the difference between the text that is written in Hebrew and the quotes that are in Yiddish, but I try to illustrate the situation. The girl and the two male servants who were interrogated, gave their testimony in Yiddish, the spoken language of the Jews, that was not used in sacred or written legal texts. The words appear here in the original language because it was of extreme importance to know exactly what words the young man spoke and what the girl said or answered to him. In this short text, we have 3 points of view of the incident, the girls, and those of the two witnesses. Note that each of these attribute a different level of agency to the girl. The girl herself claims that she took the ring. The first witness claims that the boy gave her the ring. And the second one notes that she begged much for the ring. While in this case, it is quite clear that the male servant had no vicious intentions, but rather was behaving foolishly and without thought. Some men tried to take advantage of girls' scant knowledge of the Hebrew language. And this is from a different incident. And again, you can see the original Hebrew and Yiddish and the translation of the key sentences here. Mr. Yitzchak, who is known as Isaac, son of Rabbi Zelig Mardis, testified under oath how he seduced this certain girl, and how one time, when he had intercourse with her, he told her, "You are married to me by this act." And there was no witness to this. And the virgin said in Yiddish, "What did you say?" In the original, it sounds, "Was sagst du?" And he translated into Yiddish the above. That is the marriage formula that he said. And she said in Yiddish, "I do not want. What will my father say?" And at the time, she was not 12 yet. So just just that you don't need to worry. There are many problematic issues with this attempt to marry this girl, not on her age. He didn't say the exact formula. There are no witnesses. So from that point of view, they're probably not married. But of course, we have here a case of rape, which is a different concern. As in the previous story, it is again vital to document exactly what the girl said in the original. And even though or at least in this part, she was not interrogated, we hear her voice through the voice of the man. But again, in the original language and in the exact words, hopefully, that she said. And we have a remarkable example of the significant agency and the ability to resist on the part of the young girl, enabling her to save herself from a terrible situation. So while these examples testify to girls' ability to assume agency in dire patriarchal situations, which otherwise work to the disadvantage of women and girls, we also find girls' voices in other situations. Little is known about children's work in early modern Jewish community. We have few sources that mention positions that were reserved for children and young adults, such as assistants to teachers and community beadles. Based on what we know from the surrounding non-Jewish world, we can assume that children trained as apprentices, but we have very little evidence of such practices. In this context, it is surprising to find evidence of girls working in printing houses as typesetters, expressing their experience in writing in the colophons of the books they helped print. And I just brought here an example of one very nice colophon at the end of a book. Ours is a more simple example, but nevertheless extremely unique. Such are the rhymes of Ele, composed in Yiddish. And you can see here a picture of the original print at the end of the book, my transcription of the Yiddish and the English translation. The Taich letters, Yiddish letters, I set with my own hands. Ele, daughter of the honored Rabbi Moshe of Holland. My age is only 9 years, an only daughter among 6 children. Therefore, if you find a mistake, you should know that this was set by a girl. In these short verses, Ella gives expression not only to her experience working as a typesetter, but also as being a girl in the world. Ella situates herself in the world as a daughter and sister, and as a professional in training. She is proud of her work, and though she is aware of her abilities, at the same time she recognizes the prevalent limitations imposed on them by the expectations and prejudices regarding young girls and their abilities. In this short presentation, I have brought forward the voices of 3 early modern Jewish girls. Scholars who have came across one or more of these sources while studying one of these genres, either legal writings or paratext or topics such as printing houses or mock marriages, have defined, or servants, have defined these sources as so exceptional and rare that they have little significance to historical research. Yet, when looking across genres and searching for more voices, others that appears in texts and genres not discussed today, and more in these genres, these are just examples of girls' voices that are found in these texts, we can begin to hear and listen to the voices of girls from the past. We can see what language they used, their spoken Yiddish, in which they felt comfortable using in print as well. We can see their attempts to act and interact with peers and predators. We can see they had a sense of self-value and meaning, while still being aware of their place in the world and in society. Thank you very much.